Did you miss us? Because we missed you. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of The Sports Advocates. I'm Manistee News Advocate and Benzie County Record Patriots sports reporter Mitch Vosburg. Flanked as always at a 90-degree angle. Sports editor McLain Moberg. McLain, man, girls district was insane. Boys district's going on right now, but it's Tuesdays for recording this. How we feeling?
Man, the girls basketball districts were fun, man. Just going out there. I got to be there for the Manistee Traverse City St. Francis game. That was insane. Manistee almost won it. Yeah. And, obviously then you were in attendance for probably the biggest one of them all, with Onekama defeating Brethren there, pulling that upset, which, hey, it's March. That's what happens.
Absolutely.
Sharpie.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, just a wild week. On our prediction episode, I got all but one game right, which that was the district title game. I did not see that coming. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's the second straight girls sports season where I can say I'm not going to prove me wrong. And I'm not mad about it whatsoever, because it came down to who wins, the height and length or speed, and speed wound up winning.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I mean, Onekama's press was just insane. Brethren had a lot of trouble, especially the first quarter, trying to push the ball up the floor, and then man, Carly Bennett made big plays when she had to. A lot of these 8th grade girls, like Lena McCarthy, Addie Zeller, Ava Mountler. I know I'm forgetting one name in there, and I'm sorry about that. But those girls, there's something with this 8th grade group that I really enjoy. For some reason, they play like sophomores. I don't get what it is. Especially, I don't know if it's the confidence or what, but they got something brewing there with that class.
Onekama's got some really, really nice young athletes.
They do.
And they did, honestly, last year, too, which those girls and boys are a little older now, obviously, but clearly they had a lot of reloading behind them. They had some talented 7th graders that are now 8th graders. And, within that district as well, I had every game right, aside from the Onekama win, which, just with the size advantage that Brethren had, I just couldn't pull that trigger. But clearly, in this instance, speed beats power, speed beats size. Mm-hmm. And in that next district here with the Walkerville district, that happened last week, I had that one wrong. I had Catholic winning it against McBain Northern Michigan. They lost by 3, which brings right off the top of my head, I couldn't remember. I think they had 6 or 7 losses. Either way, they're
6 losses by a combined 16 points.
Yeah, that's what it ended up being. It was insane. They had multiple 1-point losses this year. Right at the buzzer, too. It wasn't like just, the clock ran out. Frankfurt beat them at the buzzer on the last shot. Marion beat them at the buzzer on the last shot. They really were in every game they played this year. The largest margin for loss was losing to Benzie.
By 6 points, yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
This is a great team, and, unfortunately they fall a little short here, but certainly nothing to hang your head about, I don't think.
Yeah, so one thing about this, my prediction was whoever shot best from the floor was going to win this game. If you look at the stat sheets, MCC did shoot better, and they still lost. So I'll chalk that up as a L for me, too. So, yeah, because again, my take I thought was right, but then wound up being wrong, weirdly enough. But
They were trailing a little bit, and, Todd Erickson, the head coach over there, basically the way he tells it is they were trailing a little bit, and they caught fire in the 4th. It was just wasn't enough. They did have a look at the end to tie. It just didn't fall down.
Yeah.
And, that Frankfurt district as well, hosted by Frankfurt, they made it to the finals against just monster Glen Lake. Obviously, that was going to be a very tough out for them. I believe they met at the end of the regular season right before they played in that district finals again. And again, Glen Lake was just a monster this year. They usually are, of course, and a very tough team to take down. Mitch, your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, not too much of a surprise. I mean, Glen Lake is one of the top 2 teams in the state, and just after watching them warm up before that semifinal game against Lake Leelanau St. Mary, my eye test was that's kind of insane. They have that sort of size and athletic ability both. It's not an easy matchup. It's not. Glen Lake has one of those teams. It's just one of those teams you get every 10, 20 years, and it's hard to compete with them when that happens. So.
And then we have the last girls district, I believe, here is the Manistee one. That game, or that district opened up with Manistee versus Grand Traverse Academy. They win that Wednesday. That Tuesday is when they played that game because those games got delayed. And then they ended up having to play back-to-back in that district finals, district tournament. Not really sure if that affected them at all, having to play that back-to-back. Ken Cott did tell me after that GTA win that lack of preparation that they were going to have. On that Tuesday, they were obviously going to watch film, they were going to run some scout team and whatnot, and they did not have that opportunity. But I would like to say this about the Manistee girls basketball team, is that they did not win that game against St. Francis, but they thoroughly impressed me. Not that should matter to anybody, but they did, and in a lot of ways, they proved me wrong. I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to keep up with the St. Francis team, and that was a game right up until the end. Obviously, they pull away there when you talk about fouling, free throws, trying to stay in the game, coming down, and trying to create offense out of desperation. Then things sort of tend to get away with you in basketball. But throughout those first 3 quarters, they were right there, and honestly, in the middle of that third quarter, they had St. Francis on the ropes. And then Benzie obviously wins on the other side of that bracket, and they lose to St. Francis as well, who, again, just another tough, hard-fought battle, but eventually St. Francis pulls away. Watching St. Francis twice in that tournament, there was one thing in both of those games that was clear. They just weirdly had an ability to kind of collect themselves, where, let's say, things are kind of going haywire in a way that they weren't anticipating. Their coach did a phenomenal job of calling a timeout at the right time, gathering the troops up, refocusing them, calming them down, and then they would come out of a timeout, and it was like they were a totally different team. And that, kudos to them for having the squad that they do and the coaching that they do.
Right on. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch any of those games, so I don't have much to say about that Manistee district, just because of that reason. So, yeah.
But then obviously we have the boys this week, Mitch, which we've already ran through the predictions, but we did have a couple of games last night, if you want to talk about the one you were at.
Yeah, Brethren and MCC duked it out for the third time this year and second time in about a 5-day stretch. Nick Fortier mentioned it too, they just didn't have an answer for Garrett Mobley, which, it's hard at this level, Division IV Class C, however you want to call it, because I forget either way. But it's hard to match up with someone who's 6'5", and also that type of athlete Garrett is. That combination is just, it's hard to match up with. And not to forget too, they're starting to shoot again from 3-point range, which I have a couple kids. I love Tiggy, number 3. I can't remember his first name. Kalen Tiggy, thank you. He knocked down a couple big threes because, once MCC started to pack the box inside, Tiggy was wide open, and he's going to be a nice piece for him too, which the thing that could surprise me about Brethren a little bit, but also not at the same time, they started Connor Wojo, 3 sophomores, Jack Mazzaros, Keelan Tiggy, and Garrett Mobley, and a freshman in Kenyon Brown.
Yep.
They have a young roster, but
it is.
But man, I'm really excited to see how they manage it, because you get to run this group back all again next year, and then B, you get to run this you get to run back 80% of that group again in 2 years. So let these kids get their battle scars now, and just let's see how they hang in there, especially with round 2 of Frankfurt coming. Going to be a day after this releases.
Yep.
But I'm excited to see how that matchup goes.
Yeah, at the time of recording, the results will be in. Once you're listening to this, we'll know the results of that Brethren Frankfurt game. But Mitch, I want to ask you, does watching that game last night change your mind at all? We have the same opinion that we both think Frankfurt's going to win this semifinal game, but watching that game last night with Brethren, does that change your mind at all for Wednesday?
It doesn't really change my mind, because there's still times with Brethren where there were lulls, and there are times JJ Randall told me after the game, hey, there are times where the communication, especially in the third quarter, broke down on both ends. On defense, it broke down. On offense, it broke down. With a young team like I mentioned, 1 junior, 3 sophomores, and freshmen, it's not because they lack talent. It's just because, that tends to happen, especially for the kids that young. Now, do I still think it's going to be a tighter battle with Frankfurt than the first time? Absolutely, yes. But I think Frankfurt has the bodies to at least try and match up better with Garrett Mobley than the MCC did, and so I still like Frankfurt in this one, but it's still going to be absolute old school slugfest. It's good old school, Jared will put it, just a good old slobber knocker. Physical game. It's going to be fun to watch. I still think Frankfurt pulls ahead, though.
We've obviously had Manistee. They played last night, too, in their district opener over at Mason County Central. They played Shelby and lost. Fell a little short there. From talking to Zach Bialik last night, they were leading in that second quarter 18-9. And had a decent advantage there kind of towards the end of that second quarter and in that first half. And then that third quarter maybe got away from them a little bit. They still had a chance at the end, according to the coach as well. 6-point game with 2 minutes left in regulation. And then at that point, when you talk about, again, sort of like with the Manistee girls team, trying to create offense out of desperation and having to play the foul game, it just becomes extremely tough to manage that and to pull that off. And so they do fall, which, ultimately takes out, our only team that was in that district. And, that leaves us with Shelby and Mason County Central and White Cloud and Hesperia to win it.
Also took out my pick to win that district. But, hey, you know what? I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that whatsoever. Got to give a lot of credit to the senior class with Manistee. They may not realize this out of the gate, and they may not realize it for a couple of years down the road, but they laid down the foundation for what Bialik wants this program to be. And kind of the same boat like the brother girls was. I mean, they kind of filled that role. And, man, I did believe they could make a run in the district tournament. But, I mean, obviously, fate would have it. It wasn't meant to be, so be it. But I think we can both agree that Manistee boys basketball is definitely trending in the right direction after the season.
I totally agree with you. I told Zach as much last night that I thought this was a solid first season. They really found their footing in the last 90 days of the regular season and into these playoffs. I mean, this may have been a 53-36 loss, but like he told me last night, that score is not, indicative of how close the game was, similar to the girls as well. And they played a good ball game. It just didn't fall their way. And sometimes that happens. But that's also a sign of a team that's trending upwards when they're playing competitive ball, when they're in it with, 2 minutes left in the game. And maybe things just go sideways. That's basketball. But that's totally different than maybe how things were structured earlier in the year with Manistee basketball, where they were still trying to figure out lineups. They were still trying to figure out chemistry. Zach Bialik was still trying to implement offensive and defensive systems. And it took them a while to get going, but in my opinion, they got going, and next year is going to be fun with these kids.
Absolutely, which then one last district game, I believe, Benzie Central?
Yeah, so the Benzie Central boys won last night 74-61, and they played Lake City in Lake City. Crocker, Josh Crocker, the head coach over there, he more or less wasn't thrilled, even though they won. He basically, told me in the article for the people that have read, obviously, they accomplished their goal of winning, but he wanted them to be a little more energetic. They kind of came in flat-footed, which is why they gave up 61 points. Defensively, just really flat-footed, not able to kind of get a rhythm going, and he said that was a lack of energy. And obviously they've got St. Francis up next, the boys team, which is just as good as the girls team. They're 18-4. They're probably the best team in this district, aside from Glen Lake, obviously, which if they both reach there, that'll be a heck of a finals. But he likes how they're matching up right now. So kind of to just update this, and I haven't seen St. Francis play, but I would be interested in seeing this game because Miles Pritchett, their big man, has been posting some big numbers lately. And last night he scored 31. And
you can't see it, folks, but my eyebrows are up by my hairline right now for hearing that.
He dropped 31, and when I asked him how important is he going to be to Wednesday night's game, he said extremely, because in the beginning of the season they were more perimeter guard oriented, and if they get him going, then they're a threat on multiple ends of the court. And so maybe St. Francis has to play some help, side defense on Miles, and then maybe that opens up something for the perimeter players. So I think maybe Benzie is going to have a bit of a better chance here than maybe they did, let's say, a month ago. Now they've sort of found some things within their chemistry and within their makeup of their lineups that they hadn't discovered earlier, but now they're starting to get going. So I think this game's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that one goes. So that's probably one I'll tune in and watch. I mean, I'm not doing any game coverage on Wednesday, so might as well just, enjoy a nice little night, have a beverage. I'm talking 7-Up, folks. Come on, jeez. Legit 7-Up, because I'm a fairly old man. But, yeah, man, I mean, then next week, obviously, the high school March Madness is awesome, but even next week we get another player of March Madness on top of this we'll talk about, too, which I'm really excited about with my 5 hours of research on Sunday night. If you see me walking like a zombie at all on Monday out in public, that's why. But, I think we need to break off here. So, one last thing. We'll get to this segment here because obviously we don't have a whole lot to talk about today. But I'll give you the floor first, sir.
For one last thing here?
For one last thing.
Well, honestly, I'm just going to stick with some NFL draft stuff, too. And I don't know if I'm going to get as specific as Mitch. This guy's a maniac over here. He's a mad scientist. But for me, I will say this, that I'm finally pulled in. I've gotten past the point of maybe, being a little tired of football, so to speak. Got a little footballed out, went to some golf, went to some baseball preview stuff. But now, yesterday, I found myself hunting down every NFL draft preview and board and everything that I could find, Mitch. And it's been fun. I tell you what, I love when I get into this mode. Then you start reading about the players and their scouting reports. It's just fun. And then you do start to kind of relay that to the Lions, of course. Like, Mitch is going to talk about who he, has in a minute here. But at 6, for me personally, I do want somebody off the edge, or I want a D tackle. I'd love a Jalen Carter, or I'd love a Miles Murphy, I believe. I would love somebody like that, or a Tyree Wilson. But I think from what I've read, he's a little more of a project than a Miles Murphy, maybe. And so we'll see. But it's exciting. It's exciting just to do it. And, at 18, it's fun. I mean, the other week you're talking about, should they take Bijan? And then I'm kind of looking at corners, and you're clearly looking in the secondary as well at 18. That's kind of where I was venturing towards. But we'll just see, man. As the draft approaches, I'm going to keep reading, and it's always fun when that floodgate opens for me, and I finally take the plunge, and I'm just like, okay, give me every player you've got.
Yeah. So for my one last thing, like McLain mentioned, I'm kind of a maniac, but I'm a friendly maniac who likes hugs. So I mentioned a lot of prospects for you guys, so after a lot of contemplation, after watching the Combine, I think I'm able to finally release my first mock draft. So, introducing now, Mitch Vosburg's mock draft version 1.0. Cue the trumpet. All right. First overall pick. Bears take Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama, edge rusher. My gut is the gap between Bryce Young, Stroud, Levis, and Richardson is not big enough where I feel a team like Indianapolis, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Carolina, Washington feels the desperation that 100% absolutely paid the absolute king's ransom, which will probably be around 3 firsts, a second, and maybe a player to move up to 1. Mm-hmm. But if you're Chicago and you think about the Indy scenario, you're still going to get Will Anderson Jr., who I think at least his build is very similar to Khalil Mack coming out of college, which is absolutely terrifying. But he's a guy known as the Terminator. That's the guy you want to build your defense around, right? So Anderson at 1. Number 2, Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama to Houston. If one more person makes a case about him not being able to see over offensive line, I might pull my hair out. Because let's be honest, does Alabama have small offensive linemen? Do you want a Heisman at Alabama, right? Was this offensive lineman all below 5'10"? No. This past year, Alabama's offensive linemen from sophomore to seniors did not have a player shorter than 6'4". The whole debate about him not being able to see over the offensive line, all right? He literally had the same measurables as Kyler Murray coming out. He's going to be fine.
Oh, I'm with you.
As long as he has the O-line to keep him upright, he's fine. Now, number 3, we have our first trade. Carolina Panthers move up 6 spots to select C.J. Stroud of Ohio State. They need a quarterback. All right, they have a really good defense, a pretty solid offensive line. You got some good receivers with DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall Jr. had a good year last year. Get your quarterback. Mm-hmm. Get it situated. The price to go from 9 to 3 is going to be a little bit cheaper than going from 9 to 1. I see them flipping their first this year, first next year. The second and third they got from San Francisco and the McCaffrey deal. Use what you got, man. So I like that going there, which means number 4, the Indianapolis Colts. Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. Look, I went back and watched that Kentucky-Florida game from this past year. When Will Levis has time to sit back, read the defense, super accurate, super precise, he's the kind of quarterback you want. He fits in that same mold as like a Josh Allen or a Daniel Jones. He's big, strong, mobile, good arm, smart. As long as Indy's own line stays healthy this year, and then probably get him hopefully one more receiver, I think he'll be just fine in Indy, especially long term. But yeah, give me Levis, the Colts at 4. Number 5, Seattle Seahawks. I've flirted with the trade here, but I'm going to stick with this. Say Jalen Carter out of Georgia. I think there's a couple organizations, a couple coaches I feel can handle someone who has those off-the-field issues. I'll get to one later on, too. I feel Seattle can do a good job with that. Pete Carroll's that kind of guy that helped kind of smooth the situation over. So from there, give me Jalen Carter to round up top 5. Number 6, Detroit Lions. Wait, is that a phone ringing? We got a trade. The Detroit Lions trade pick 6 to the Washington Redfoot Commanders in exchange for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third. So next year's first and second, this year's first, second, and third. Just load up with picks. And with that pick, Washington gets desperate and selects Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. Washington's a team that also needs a quarterback, right?
That's true.
Now,
Anthony Richardson's been hot in the streets lately.
Exactly.
People are loving his combine.
Exactly. Now, I'm not a fan of him. When I watched that Florida-Kentucky game, there are times it's like, okay, his eyes stay downfield, it's good. There are times like, okay, he made that throw, nice. There's also times where he misses throws, it's like, how'd you miss him by 10 yards? The accuracy's not there yet. But Washington knows they have something with that defense. They have some really talented receivers. We talk about Curtis Samuel and Scary Terry. Mm-hmm. Man, the OSU receivers, awesome. But no, I think, look, you need a quarterback. You have to get desperate. You got to pull a trigger on somebody. Why not the guy who has touted himself as Cam Jackson, the mix between Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson? He literally did that.
I know.
So give me Anthony Richardson at 6. 7, the Raiders. I got him taking Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Like you mentioned, maybe a bit of a project guy. But if you put him opposite of Max Crosby, you're going to find success somehow. And that defense just needs, the whole roster needs talent. Let's be honest, they're starting to retool here. Sorry, Devontae Adams. It stinks. So give me that.
That's a risk you take when you leave a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Possibly Hall of Fame quarterback. We'll see. Number 8, Falcons. I like Jackson Smith and Najiba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Look, the Falcons at this point, they don't win the bidding war to get a quarterback. I think they're still in play to get Lamar Jackson potentially if that ends up happening. So this 8th overall pick may change. But when you look at Atlanta's receiving core, we have Drake London and... No, exactly. We need more talent. I mean, you have Kyle Pitts too, but you need one more receiver to go with it. For those who are unsure about Jackson Smith and Najiba, just watch that Rose Bowl game against Utah from a couple years ago. How he went absolutely nuclear against Utah. So give me Smith and Najiba at 8. Number 9, the Cardinals pick from Carolina. Give me Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia. Yeah, I get it, the size. He's not quite 240, but you watch him play, passes the eye test when he's on the field, good at getting the quarterback, good in the run game, awesome. But he also ran a 4.39 40. Like, everything you thought about this kid you saw on tape translates physically like, yeah, he's going to be a monster. I get it, maybe their size, but he's just a little bit bigger and a little bit quicker than Hassan Reddick, who has kind of been terrorizing quarterbacks for the past 5 years. I mean, taking a guy at 9 who could probably get you possibly 10 or 12 sacks a year, like, there's no loss there, right? I mean, we totally thought last year Ian Hutchinson was going to be more than like 10, 11 sacks, and he went too. So give me that. And then number 10, we have a trade. Lions come back up to top 10. Select Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon. Because let's face facts, that secondary needs help. You have Jeff Okuda, who's been inconsistent, and Kirby Joseph was awesome. That's one piece. Tracy Walker was hurt. Deshaun Elliott, solid. But you need help at secondary badly. Gonzalez, I think, is the best corner in this class. 6'2", fast, physical, everything you want. So for there, Lions trade up with the Eagles in the situation, take Christian Gonzalez. So for picks 11 through 31, I'm just going to rattle them off. If something catches McLain Moberg's eye, he's going to tell me to stop. Okay. I'll explain it. Now, I'll give you 3 picks where you can be like, press the buzzer, kind of.
Okay. All right.
Pick 11, Tennessee Titans. Peter Skoronski, tackle, Northwestern. Feel it makes sense. Pick 12, Kalijah Kancey to the Houston Texans. Out of Pittsburgh. Get a chance to watch? Dude, the news of that is all get out. Pick 13, the Jets take Paris Johnson Jr., tackle out of Ohio State. Yep. Pick 14, we have another trade. Lions trade with the Patriots to select Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama, to solidify that secondary. Pick 15, the Green Bay Packers finally take a first-round receiver, Jordan Addison out of USC. Pick 16, the Philadelphia Eagles select Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. Secondary needs help. Yep. Pick 17, my Pittsburgh Steelers select Joey Porter Jr., cornerback out of Penn State. If you're with me watching this draft, I will go absolutely berserk if this happens. Pick 18, the New England Patriots take Myles Murphy, edge rusher out of Clemson.
Why do you think that is?
Well, Matthew Judon ain't getting younger. I mean, and outside of that, I mean, what else do you have on the defensive interior? I mean, Christian Barmore is awesome, but also at this point, it's best available player, and I think at this point at 18, that's the best guy. They could go receiver here, which wouldn't surprise me, but, I mean, we're also talking about Bill Belichick here.
That's true.
So, yeah, give me Myles Murphy, 18, the Patriots. 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Broderick Jones, tackle out of Georgia, because Donovan Smith ain't it.
Yep.
Pick 20, the Seattle Seahawks, Will McDonald IV out of Iowa State. He is an edge rusher.
Yes, he is.
Pick 21, my boy Brian Bresee, defensive tackle out of Clemson, goes to the Chargers.
Let's talk about Brian for a second. He's always been interesting, and he was hurt for a little while, wasn't he, early on in his career?
Yeah, he had an ACL tear his sophomore season, and then last year his younger sister lost her battle with brain cancer. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to bounce back from that. I mean, he was the number one recruit in his class, too. Plus, I mean, okay, my thing on the Chargers, the thing you need, especially, is to win the trenches. Chargers on defense don't do that. You need some sort of big body in that defense, which they thought Jerry Tillery was the guy. He wasn't it. So, Brian Bresee is the safe, responsible pick here. I've seen receiver go there, too, which I don't think is the biggest need right now with this team. But, yeah, give me Bresee out of Clemson. Pick 22, Baltimore Ravens take Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. Ram Bazoo, Liggity Zuzu, all that stuff. Pick 23, the Vikings trade out. Pittsburgh Steelers come back in and select out of Northwestern. Give me a second to pronounce this name, folks. Adetomiwa Adebawore. Edge rusher out of Northwestern. I'll say this. 6'3", 280, 45, 40. Dude's an animal. Pittsburgh needs help in the trenches. Pick 24. Jacksonville Jaguars take DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle, or right tackle, out of Ohio State. Pick 25. The New York Football Giants select Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas.
That is very interesting, Mitch.
Yeah, so my gut as of right now is saying Daniel Jones gets franchise tag, Barkley's going to have to hit free agency. That's what my gut's telling me right now, which means, you need a running back. Well, he's arguably the best running back prospect to come out since Saquon. So, pick 26, the Dallas Cowboys select Maisie Smith, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Pick 27, Buffalo Bills, Osiris Torrance, offensive guard out of Florida, because that interior offensive line needs help desperately. The Cincinnati Bengals at 28, Anton Harrison, tackle out of Oklahoma, because Jonah Williams ain't had him left tackle. Pick 29, the New Orleans Saints. This could go a lot of ways. I like Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. I have talked about him in the past in the pod. Check out other episodes. Pick 30, the Philadelphia Eagles. Antonio Johnson, safety out of Texas A&M. And finally, Kansas City Chiefs select Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Get you a burner that can top off the defenses. So, yeah, that's my mock draft version 1.0. This will obviously update as trades happen because the first domino of the quarterback market fell to Derek Carr.
Yeah.
And then once Aaron Rodgers decides to end this soap opera and make up his mind,
might be a while.
Rumor has the Packers and Jets are talking trade already. So
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess this wraps up this episode. Stick with us next week. We'll have some March Madness talk for you. But anything else you get off your chest here?
Yeah, man, this is it. Another exciting episode here. NFL draft approaching, March Madness approaching. We're getting into, hey, guess what else is approaching? The Masters. Getting into a lot of good stuff. WrestleMania, maybe that's just Mitch and I's thing, though. But there's a lot of fun stuff coming up here, so the podcast is going to keep getting exciting, man.
I'll say this. Wrestling is fun again. It's been a long time since I could see that, but wrestling is fun again. So, we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. If you're listening off YouTube, Subscribe to the Manistee News Advocate YouTube page. Like, share. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, 5-star review. And if you're listening on any other platform, please let me know because I will be concerned. But until we talk again, folks, from McLain Moberg, I'm Mitch Vosburg. Y'all be safe and keep your stick in the ice.